All right, so my name is Mike Nichols, Senior Product Designer here with Shinya, and we're going to do the wrap-up video for the macro UX experiment. So today I'm just going to walk through what we've done, what we accomplished, and we'll go from there. So
Yep.
let me share my screen.
Mhm.
This is in the retro issue. I kind of broken these down from a UX perspective of the things that we've accomplished. So to date, we have done 12 merge requests that have been merged. So I'll start first with these ones that are kind of more in the documentation realm. So this first one here, I forget exactly why I included this one because it was actually Victor that did this one, but I think this was out of a conversation that we were having about some documentation improvements. He's actually the one that made the changes, but I think this was one of the suggestions that we might have made there. But it's basically just removing a few extra steps that didn't really add anything and actually were kind of confusing. So some of the prerequisites basically that you need, and just simplified it to create an agent. You need to hold the configuration file. So looking at that live in the document, it's actually changed a little bit since then, but this section has gotten cleaned up a little bit with removing a few steps that were unnecessary there. So going to the next one, this was this removing of this warning. And I think the easiest way to see this, if we just look at the issue, because it shows the warning that was there before. So we had this warning in there that the feature might not be available to you. I think this was a leftover before it was moved down to the free tier. So some users might have seen it, might have had the feature available, some might not have, but since it's been moved down to the free tier, everybody sees it. So this is no longer applicable. So it was just an unnecessary warning that we removed.
Yep.
All right, and then going to the next one. Again, so we'll just look at the changes. So this one, if you have not yet set up a cluster and you needed a few, there wasn't really much guidance on what to do or what your options were for doing that. So this was the addition of a few options that you might have to create that cluster. So looking at it live in the docs, this is the prerequisite section. So if you don't have an existing cluster set up, here are some providers, and then a note about on self-managed, how you need to set up the GitLab server. So I think this is a nice improvement because it gives users a way to go if they haven't yet set up a cluster. All right, so that's it for the documentation improvements. And then the next three are kind of UI polish items. And they all kind of center around this theme of applying primary and secondary buttons, basically to be aligned with our pajamas design system on the standards for modals. So there were three associated with that. This one, the primary and secondary buttons were flipped. So we had initially the primary button was to cancel, and the action that the user would need to take here to move forward in the process would be to go to repository files. So this made sense. Flipping the primary and the secondary there. This next one, I'll actually go to the issue because it's easier to see here. Just the ordering of these things. So previously, this one had the correct primary and secondary buttons as far as the actions, but they're flipped in the modal. So this was reordering them so they follow our standard where the primary button is the one all the way on the right. And then this last one here was we've been using this secondary button variant, and the cancel buttons really should be tertiary. So removing that here, and this applied to several modals actually. So I'll go to the actual product here, and we can see now, I'll just show this one as an example. So now we have, there are several of these modals across this screen. that you use depending on what step you are in, but they all should now be following our pajamas style guidelines. Primary button on the right, primary button for the associated with the user action that they would most likely take, and then using tertiary buttons instead of secondary. So a couple of
Yeah,
UI
looks nice.
polish items there, mostly associated with the modals. All right, so that's for the UI polish ones. So the next three will be UI text related. So the first one here, it was kind of just a rewrite of this, what's the agent configuration file. The link that this takes you to is really a page all about installation. In fact, this links to the top of the page in the documentation. Sorry, I closed my documentation one. Get it open here for you. It really links to the top of this page, which really isn't associated with configuration file. Configuration file is a step of this, but coming to this page to try and get more information about what a configuration file didn't make a lot of sense. It's really about the installation. So it's really more just about aligning the text to help users understand what information they're going to be presented to in the docs page when they get here. The second one here. So if you are on self-managed or an instance of GitLab that does not have the Kubernetes agent server set up, creating a configuration file and moving through the steps won't get you anywhere. You're basically blocked until you install the Kubernetes agent server. So what we did here was remove this set of installation instructions here, which were listed first, because a user might come to this, read these installation instructions, click on the primary button, go through the steps, and this will not result in them being able to set up their server because they're blocked. And then now when they come back, they're not going to be presented with this modal anymore because it's replaced by another modal. So better to just remove the step and put the relevant instructions up front here. The user really is blocked at this point. So don't take them down a path that is going to result in them not being able to set it up anyway. So just clear up the instructions and make it clearer there. And then the last two were both related to, I'm going to say, attempting to standardize the agent naming. So there is still an ongoing discussion about this, but this page, kind of mostly centered around the capitalization of agent, was all over the place. So sometimes we capitalized, sometimes we didn't, and there really wasn't a rhyme or reason. So this merge request and the other one associated with it were an attempt to standardize that, bring that in there. So we're using a consistent naming convention across the product and the docs as well. But I will mention that there is still an ongoing discussion, so we might make some further tweaks to how we're actually labeling that. It's trending more towards not using capitalizing or potentially even removing the word agent altogether. And then this other one associated with it was just one. That first merge request knocked out a couple of them, and then there was one that got overwritten, so that one was just catching that one up. So these are both about standardizing the agent naming. This next one, I categorized it as navigation. And actually, I'll just show you this in the product itself. Where is my test product? Okay. So if you've created a project and you're on the project details page, previously this button would take you to the deprecated method. So now we've changed it. So clicking on this button will take you to this page, which is, I think, the proper place to take a user to set this up. Previously, it was taking you to this page, which is the deprecated method, and there isn't really a way to get back to the agent method. So we were taking users kind of to a dead end there, or at least to a deprecated method. So little bit of a navigational improvement there. And this last one, I just called it a UX improvement. This was, again, I'll just show you this one live in the product here. So in this menu here, previously, the order was, I believe, create a new cluster, connect with agent, and
Yes.
connect with a certificate, and they weren't categorized. So this drop down really was there was no association between the two that were related to certificate and one that was related to agent. And also we had the deprecated method listed as the first option. So two improvements here, one listing agent, the preferred method, as the top item, and then organizing them better. So a little bit better information architecture here. So that's it for the improvements that we were actually able to get merged. I'll mention a few other efforts that did not result in merge requests. So the first one, like I mentioned, the standardized agent naming, that is an ongoing discussion, and we'll probably have a few merge requests that come out of that one. We did take a look at the focus pattern on some of the modals. This turned out to be a Firefox bug. It's not really a Firefox bug per se, it's Firefox on Mac. The user settings on that actually don't recognize HTML links as part of the tab index. And that's actually working how it's designed according to Firefox and Mac. So this ended up not being a bug. It's actually working as it's supposed to be. This one we did do we had a number of suggestions that we were going to do to the docs, but the configure team actually was working on this at the same time and kind of rewrote the docs. So we ended up not implementing any of that. Let's see, what was the other one? And then the last one was this, there was a proposal that would have potentially reworked the flow of these buttons and the registration flow, but this one just proved to be a little bit too large in scope for us to tackle during the time, so we ended up not implementing this, but the proposal is out there if the configure team does want to pick it up later on down the road. And I think that's it. Chinya, was there anything that you wanted to?
That's great summary, thanks. Overall, I think we made a great improvement on onboarding experience for Kubernetes agent. Like as we can see this issue list, we found many a UI that and then supply also like a documentation that, and we cleaned up all of things, and we are optimistic that we are positive that this maybe gains drives adoption to this feature, which is good for the product.
Awesome. Okay, so I will link the retro issue that I was working off of in the video description, and I think that should cover it. Side note, it's been great working with you on this, Shinya, so appreciate it.
You do, yeah.
All right, we'll end the recording there. Thanks.